I'm also really excited about this next panel that we're bringing up, Building Equity and Allyship for People with Disabilities. And many of you may not know, but it's in the report that we released that I think in 2016, Melinda and I did a whole summit called Building in Tech for People with Hidden and Invisible Disabilities. It was in Berkeley. It was the first of its kind. It was a unique event. And it was feedback from our first tech inclusion because a lot of people was like, we need more conversation around people with disabilities. And since then, we decided to merge the content into tech inclusion instead of doing a separate event. But we're excited about, the conversation moving forward and the impact it's having in the tech industry. So I believe we're ready.
Hi, everyone. I have this incredible panel here, and I thought that we would kind of get the framework started by talking about shared language. So a lot of non-disabled people don't really know how to engage in conversations around disability because they don't know what the right words are to use. And there's a growing movement within the disability community around identity-first language, so I'm disabled, versus person-first language, I'm a person with a disability. So Kate, I know that you had an experience yesterday that you wanted to share around use of language, or what your thoughts are around that.
Right. I had such an unusual experience last evening. It was a wonderful experience. I went to the new Chase Center and saw Eric Clapton. He was wonderful. But you know what struck me right away is that at the Chase Center, instead of having disabled, confusion reigns because the sign said handicapped. And I have not seen that in so many years, but it's all over the Chase Center. So confusion is out there. How do we address people with disabilities? I was fortunate enough to go to Russia the end of last year to attend an international conference, and this very subject came up. And I think the conclusion was that most of the countries around the world now refer to us as a person with a disability, because just saying we're disabled is making it less than. So you wouldn't say plusability, nor should you say disability. So I think most people are referring to us as being a person with a disability. But clearly, at the Chase Center, they don't have that message yet.
So there is another seat that's just opened up next to you, Kate. So I was just wondering if we could just move over one seat to your left.
Okay.
Playing musical chairs.
Little scene change here. Does anyone have anything to add to that? So Kate is saying the preferred language is person with a disability. Do any of you identify as I'm a disabled person? John.
I do. I was telling Tiffany in the speaker's room that I'm autistic, and I said that I'm kind of glad that I came out as gay before I came out as autistic, because it gave me a lot of models, because every community is similar, that we have our factions, our language disagreements, generational things. Younger disabled people have a very different view than somebody like me or somebody who's older. I prefer disabled, I prefer autistic instead of with autism, with a disability. But Shannon Rosa, who's a parent of an autistic son, taught me early on that the intent is what matters most.
Right.
And if somebody comes to me with good intent, I'll take that and appreciate it. I think a lot of non-disabled people have a fear of, I'm gonna say something wrong and I'm gonna get slapped. If you come with an open mind and treat somebody as a human, that's kind of what matters most. But what you were saying about the Chase Center, here's an entire systematic thing that was designed probably without the input of people with disabilities. And that's something that's quite different than accidentally maybe saying something that you fear is not the right thing.
And what is so wrong with the word handicapped?
The history of handicapped, if we were to believe legend, is that when people, particularly people who are blind and wanted to have assistance from the public, they would hold out their cap, their hat, looking for coins. And so that's the legend around how the story Handicap started.
Thank you for providing some of that context. Joe, Mariela, did you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, growing up, and thank you for facilitating this conversation, by the way. Growing up, I was basically brought up in a culture where disability was this thing that you swept under the rug and you didn't really acknowledge it. In fact, I didn't really have any friends or know anybody else that was hard of hearing, deaf, or really had any other type of other ability. And for me, it was hard to wrestle with the fact that I was, in fact, different. And as I got older, I went to Stanford undergrad, and that's where I started to come to terms with the fact that my difference is something beautiful, it's something worth celebrating, and it gives me superpowers that I can talk about for days. But I also found out that there's a difference between lowercase d deaf and uppercase D deaf. I didn't realize that there's a whole culture in the deaf community surrounding sign language, how the deaf community communicates, has events together, has fun, and I was never included in that. So I went to a cafe about, I want to say a month ago, and I met two gentlemen who were signing, and they didn't have any hearing abilities, and they included me in the conversation, and they identified as capital D deaf, and they made me feel so comfortable and warm. So now, at 30 years old, I'm just starting to come to terms with that. So I think we all have room to grow in that process, but for me, it's slowly getting there.
Yeah, and there's a hashtag that's gone semi-viral recently called "When I Call Myself Disabled," and it's a lot of disabled people or people with disabilities kind of taking ownership of that word and seeing the strength and the power that exists within that narrative, which I think is really beautiful. So if you do have a chance, go check out that hashtag and see some of the stories that people are sharing. Joe, I wanted to segue on something that you're saying in terms of kind of ownership of this lowercase d, uppercase D deaf identity. I want to talk a little bit about stigma and kind of the internalized ableism that a lot of us hold, where we try and make ourselves more non-disabled to the world and don't ask for our needs to be met. And it was actually the Ability in Tech Summit, I believe in 2015 or 2016, when you first actually came out as a deaf person. What was that journey like for you in terms of owning that as part of your identity? And why did you not identify with it for so long?
I think as my professional career has evolved and I've been able to accrue more, confidence in my professional status or my roles or whatever, I felt a lot more room to advocate for myself. But as somebody who is just graduating from college, not sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I still don't really know what I'm doing with my life at times, but I think now I'm starting to get the confidence to assert who I am, what I am, and not necessarily let it define me, but advocate for myself in a more meaningful and compelling way. Otherwise, I'm just going to step back, not advocate for myself, and not form the relationships and resent the situation that I'm in. So it took me time to get there, but it was the community and my family who really helped me get to that spot today.
Mariela, what about for you? Were there experiences that you've had that kind of made you withhold your own disability? And how did that impact how you showed up?
Honestly, when I listened to Joe talk about his life, I completely related. Throughout my childhood, I just really suppressed my deaf identity. And it wasn't until I met other deaf people that I really got in touch with my deaf side. And I think also when you start entering into the professional career, you start being worried because it's so competitive to just get your foot into the door. Do you want to say that you have a disability on your CV or something like that? And I think that I came to the decision that I just don't want to work anywhere that doesn't want to have a person with a disability. So I disclosed that, and I think it made my job hunt really hard. I hunted for like 9 months and applied to more than 100 jobs. But at the end of the day, I ended up working for a really cool company that had a really strong disability practice area. So I don't regret that at all.
And Kate, I know you work kind of like in the employment space at Lighthouse for the Blind. Like, are these similar narratives around fear of disclosing that you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that we in our community is visual. You can see in most instances that we have a disability. I did not lose my vision until late in life. I'd never known another blind person. When I was told that it would be wise for me to carry a white cane, it petrified me because I knew I thought people would look at me differently, think of me differently than they had my whole life. So this was a hard thing for me to pick up because I'm identifying myself. Now this is my best friend, and I'm proud to carry it, and I'm actually proud to see it identifies me as someone that I can be independent. You can see that I'm being independent because I'm using this to assist me, so I'm really proud to carry it now.
John?
You know, for people who can, of any community who maybe can pass as a majority or code switch, there's just a lot of burden that you end up, and pressure that you end up putting on yourself when you're in that situation. You've come and talked to autistic young adults that I teach and that I job coach about accommodations, and that's still a hard thing to navigate at work. And I've learned that I have to continually come out as disabled a lot of times. And when I try to pass as non-disabled, it just kicks me in the butt in the long term. I've had great experiences. I used to work for the White House, and I remember the head of White House personnel, not this White House, but the head of White House personnel invited me to lunch in the White House mess, and I disclosed that I was autistic. And I thought I was gonna lose my security clearance and my job. And his response changed my life. He said, "John, that's fantastic." And I was so confused. He said, "I've known you a long time. Have you ever thought that your difference has helped you in your career?" And I said, "No, I've always been ashamed." He said, "My job is to bring together Americans to solve problems. And I need people with different experiences, different ways of thinking to solve for those problems. Because if we're all the same, we're not going to get the outputs that we want." That being said, I had another job where I disclosed and asked for a very small accommodation, and all of a sudden had all my work reassigned to my 21-year-old intern, and I had nothing to do. And that situation was corrected eventually. But it's a tough thing for any disabled person to navigate, both in our professional life and in our social life as well. That's why we need allies to kind of help us do that work, because the more that we can normalize disability and show that it is boring and normal, just like any other difference, I think the better off we'll be.
I think there are two things I want to respond, and one is, so we're definitely going to spend probably the next chunk of time talking about allyship, so I'll put a pin in that and come back to it. But it's kind of this idea of, to be honest, I lost my train of thought, but I think something that you mentioned was like this coming out, like, I would say that the three of you, Joe, John, and Mariela, like, in a way you can almost pass as non-disabled if you would like. Does it get easier to come out every time, or is it just as hard because you don't know, sometimes your work might get reassigned? Like, does that process get easier to advocate for what you need?
I think with any marginalized group, you have to build that confidence within yourself. That's why I always say that a lot of autistic hiring programs have buddies for new autistic employees. I'm like, let's stop doing that. Give me a kick-ass woman or immigrant or person of color who had to navigate the space and show them the paths that they took, because it becomes easier the more confidence that you had. You were talking about the confidence. I don't know if it's here in the green room, but the more that you've been able to build your professional confidence, the more that you felt that freedom to be who you are. It's a hard thing. It's a practice. You have to keep practicing.
And for myself, I totally agree that it's related to confidence, and I think that I've never been able to keep that confidence. You know, there are some days where I have more confidence than others, and I go and demand and say, I want these sorts of accommodations. But I benefit from card accommodations, and those are expensive. So
And they're happening right here.
Thank you so much. So it's really hard for me to ask for a really expensive accommodation, even though it's the best way for me to be an active member of the team.
And maybe add on top of that, it's really difficult for me to let alone ask for help, and then further to ask for accommodations. But One thing, a little bit of a story from home, but my family, my girlfriend, my friends, I'll put on subtitles when we're watching shows, and sometimes I'll get a little bit of grief. Oh, I don't want to watch it with subtitles, and then I come home a week later and they're watching the same show with subtitles. And before you know it, these accommodations become normalized, and it slowly gives me the confidence to, kind of ask for more accommodations on top of that. And I've noticed that when I work for, forward-thinking leaders that integrate accommodations into everyday life and normalize it, then it creates a space where I can ask for other accommodations. But it more often than not has to come from senior leadership, creating that space, that forum, and that platform for us to ask and advocate for ourselves.
I remembered my thought, which was, a lot of times when we talk about inclusion, we're talking about assimilation to the norm, which to me is not inclusion. How can we get organizations, get people to meet us where we are, right? So that we don't feel like we're a burden if we have to ask for something or if we need something. But on that point, I wanted to kind of segue this conversation over to allyship. So for those of you who don't know, people with disabilities are 1 in 4 of the US population and about 15% of the world's population. So that's a lot of people. But we also want to say that that means that 85% of the world is non-disabled. So we do need our non-disabled friends joining us and helping us out. And so I wanted to start with kind of this question around individual allyship. We have a lot of people here who are passionate about increasing diversity and inclusion in tech. What can people who are in the audience do for us, do for you? Or what have you seen in your own experiences of allies coming to really go to bat for you? Anyone can get started with that one. Kate?
You mean personally?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard question I just think being authentic, I'm just like you are. I want to be just like you are. I am just like you are. So to just be authentic, and it doesn't matter if you say it's over there or I'll see you around. That doesn't bother me at all. I just like to have a conversation and not have people be sensitive around trying to be proper.
Yeah.
It's just being authentic.
Yeah, and I know, Kate, you and I had a conversation in the past around how much trust you have to place in other people to kind of, because you could be in positions of danger because you can't see.
Right.
And so being able to kind of put that trust into other people, whether it's for wayfinding or other things.
Right. It's not unusual for someone, if I'm walking down the street, to grab my cane and think they're helping me across the street. When that happens quite a bit of the time. And I know that sometimes that can make some people angry, but I always think of it as someone's being generous with their time and really trying to help me. So I try to be gracious back to them and say, I'm okay, thank you. But I find that people really go out of their way to help. I find that quite amazing if we look at it as being helpful. I don't take any personal affront to that at all.
That's why I think Kate is so great, because she's just so kind. Because I'm sure other people, if they tried to grab your cane or pet your dog or roll your wheelchair, may react in a different way. But I think coming from a position of seeing everyone as well-intentioned is a really powerful place to start. It's kind of like an open heart way to lead.
Mm-hmm. So for me, when I first started working for the city of San Francisco, I was ready to just fight for my accommodations because that's what I've been used to doing all my life. And my boss just came up to me and she told me that we can set aside department funds for CART. And I've never had someone do that to me, and I just cried, to be honest. And I'm just really thankful for that. And I would say, based on my experiences with people that I've met in my life, if I want something, support my voice. If I need accommodations, help me get those accommodations. Or even if I don't ask you for something and you help me understand what's being said, I really appreciate that. I feel like individually, you can also support your coworkers in a professional way, amplify their voices, engage in thoughtful conversation. This can be said for anyone. Doesn't have to be someone with a disability, but I feel like you can kind of like draw it out of them as well, because I think that a lot of people with disabilities have some self-esteem issues, and so just to kind of let them know that their opinions matters, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I always have this saying that at a fundamental level, all of us just want to be seen and heard and valued for what we're bringing to the table.
One of the things that I've noticed a lot, particularly for myself and some of my colleagues who don't have that confidence that you were talking about, is they'll say something and then somebody else gets credit for that. And leadership doesn't really step in to attribute where that initial idea came from. And then you start to get this kind of rolling snowball of lack of confidence. And if you're in a leadership position, making sure that you're attributing where those initial ideas come from can go a long way to instill and create that sense of confidence. Another thing to consider is not making assumptions. So not making assumptions about what people want to be called or how they want to be referred to, and not making that the first thing that you're going to talk about. I went to a lunch probably like 3 weeks ago, and quite powerful, affluent people, and didn't really say anything to me for the whole lunch. And then just as we're walking out, they find out that I'm deaf, hard of hearing. And suddenly it became this whole big spectacle. They didn't ask me where I'm from, what I care about, what I'm passionate about, and I became this pity case. I felt terrible about myself. So really just taking time to learn about people, care about them, and Tiffany's totally right. We want to be loved for and cared about.
I find that a lot of non-disabled people, especially in the workforce, kind of see disabled people as a lesser version of an ideal instead of just a difference. Whenever I have a young person who's maybe recently diagnosed late in life as autistic or otherwise disabled, they say, what can I read to really understand myself? I am famous for overquoting James Baldwin, and I just say, just read Baldwin. Because throughout his work, even though it wasn't about disability, a lot of his work was just about the utter boring normalcy of difference and how bizarre it is to treat somebody differently just because they're different than you. And so the more that I can get my friends to see disability as average, because it is average, it's been with humanity throughout our entire history, the more that they can understand it. And I make the point that being inclusive isn't really a mindset, it's an action. So even with my friends, I have a lot of friends who are like emotionally supportive of me, but sometimes I'm like, I just need you to kind of understand me and help me with the things that I need as an autistic person. And that translates to the workforce as well.
So I always like to make like 2 comments after all of this. So number one is, Haben Girma, who's another incredible disability advocate, has a saying, inclusion is a choice, right? It needs to be so deliberate. It needs to be this action. And then the other thing I'll say, I think to Mariela's point, is this idea where I can show up at a place and they say, we have budget for CART. I don't have to ask for permission to show up. I think having to ask for permission is what weighs me down as a disabled person. Like, oh, I'm gonna show up to this space. Are they gonna give me a hand mic? Because then I can't look at my notes at the same time and can't make very large gestures with my hands. It's like all these little things that kind of add up in our day-to-day that just weighs us down, that actually has nothing to do with the broader world, fortunately or unfortunately, but it's just the lens through which we see the world because the world has identified us as disabled. And so I think that is also a good segue to kind of thinking about allyship within the workplace. And I'll actually include this like really brief anecdote I saw on Twitter, and it said, if a wheelchair user wants to access a space, but there's a step at the front of the store, let's say it's a store, they can't even get inside to tell the shop owner that their space is inaccessible. That to me is such an incredible visual of what allyship looks like to me, because can someone who is able to access that store go in and say, hey, by the way, people who are using wheelchairs can't get into your store, and we are consumers as well. But anyway, that's the end of my rant. But yeah, I wanted to talk about allyship within the workplace. So if you didn't know, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and I would like to see Disability Employment Awareness Month all year round. If you didn't know, unemployment numbers within the disability community hover around 60 to 70%, however you skew the numbers. And even since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act 30 years ago, those numbers haven't changed. John, I know in your work, you're doing a lot of work around corporate allyship. Like, what can these companies do?
Yeah, I mean, we're forgotten most of the time. It just, in very few disability employee resource groups within Silicon Valley. I find a core thing is a lot of companies tend to, like I mentioned before, see us as a lesser version of the ideal. Or they might see us as individuals with a condition, but they don't realize that we're also people who form community and language and shared consensus because we've had to live in a world and react to a world. There's different kinds of disabled culture. Within the autistic community, there's LGBT autistic culture, Black autistic culture, deaf, hard of hearing autistic culture, and it's beautiful. So a lot of times going into a company, I kind of have to bypass the structure because they really kind of don't get it. So I start with the employees. Every company has at least a neurodiverse, ADHD, autistic, dyslexic employee there. I've learned the more that we can empower employees to connect with each other and support each other, that tends to filter up. Two women, my friends Cassandra and Carrie, have recently formed a group. They're holding their first meeting this month of the Autistic Women's Alliance. That's for professional and blue-collar autistic women and non-binary people here in the Bay Area because they're kind of sick of like nobody kind of getting them. They're like, we're gonna support each other, we're gonna identify job opportunities, we're gonna mentor, we're gonna grow people. And I've learned like once you put that into a company, it has this ripple effect because a lot of people have friends in those groups and wanna be allies. And so they clump on. Maybe they meet employees who are parents of disabled kids. And parents, by the way, in Silicon Valley, whether or not you have disabled kids, are generally unsupported and unknown. So they're excited to have employees who kind of get them as parents and from the disability perspective. And then it grows a bit more. And so all of a sudden, you start incorporating this within the company itself. I would love for corporate leaders to take action, but with any community, sometimes we have to do it ourselves.
And if you don't mind me adding to that, inclusion should be done just because we're generally good people and we want to make sure that everybody's included. But if that doesn't work, there has been a pretty strong movement to shift it from just a PR move to an economic imperative that really drives the bottom line for companies. And the disabled community does have spending power. We have purchasing power. And it's really good for companies to be inclusive because that's what helps companies grow as well. So when you have inclusion inside the company, you're generally building more diverse and inclusive products for a broader audience as well. So there's a lot of different ways to make that argument. And first is, we should do it because it's important, we're good people, and everybody should be included. But there's also that economic argument as well that has pushed executives.
Although it looks like, Kate, you might want to say something, but I had something to say on that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that you're absolutely right. I think there's also the point that statistics show that when an employer employs someone with a disability, turnover goes down. Is not because a disabled person is complacent in their job, is that they're, 75% of our blind community are not working. And that's what I do for a job, is helping people in my community find work. And I think if we take a look at the pluses, they are incredible. Everyone on this stage has learned to be a problem solver. And I think when you have a business, you have to look at those things that we bring to you that are really special and unique just because of who we are. We're used to solving problems. We have to find solutions. We have to find different ways of doing things. And I think it's so exciting to be able to share some of our technology. We find a lot of med students and people who are studying for the bar start using assistive technology because that speed of speech is so fast. They can read through a book in a day. So we have a lot to bring to We don't always have to be something that, as you were saying, did you say someone that's different? We have to add a lot, I think, to any organization.
I was just going to say, I moved to Silicon Valley because I spent a lot of years coming out for the White House, meeting with tech companies to learn best practices. And our government scientists were freaking out about the lack of diversity within Silicon Valley because they saw the drag on the economy and on the tech sector. I moved out here thinking there would be thousands of people coming to do this work because it's a national importance, not so much. I remember talking to, I think you know Stephen Wang from previous conferences, and I asked him one time, I'm like, Stephen, do CEOs not know the economic drag on their companies by having a lack of diversity? Or do they know it, maybe don't care, or do they know it and have like other fires? He was like, it's that other fires. So being disabled, I used to just preach this to companies, but nothing changed. But being disabled, we've had to learn to adapt and to go in different doors and to like do things differently. Yeah. So I started working with other disabled people to say, well, maybe we can help fix this, but it might have to be in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful way to talk about disability.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a New York Times op-ed called "We Are the Original Life Hackers," written by Liz Jackson, and I would definitely recommend reading it. So we're running a little bit low on time, so I want to end with kind of like a popcorn question, and you can choose to answer both or one or the other. So the first question is, what do you think is the biggest misconception of people with disabilities? And then the other question is, if you had a magic wand and could enact a law that would improve the lives of people with disabilities and people would actually have to do it, what would that law be? So what's the biggest misconception, or what is like the one wish law that we need? Mariela.
I feel like the biggest misconception is that people with disabilities are stupid. At the very least, that was something that I had tried to fight against that conception my entire life. And in terms of the magic wand, I'm totally cheating and taking what we talked about earlier about just equal pay, because there was a study back at my old job about how education is actually not the great equalizer for people with disabilities, and that when educational attainment increases, there's actually a wider pay gap between people with disabilities and without.
I would say the biggest misconception is that we're something utterly bizarre and not just like anybody else. Also, I'm epileptic, so shout out to anybody who has epilepsy in the audience. Always forget to include that when I talk about being autistic. We're just normal. We're normal people. And if I could pass a law, it would be to anything to do with disabled people, center it around disabled people. Like we all know, I cannot tell the audience how many programs and funds and nonprofits are created about us, but don't include us on the board or on the staff, or how many corporations launch disability initiatives and forget to ask their disabled staff. So that would be my magic law.
Okay, I was going to say everything that they said already, so at a loss of words here. But one thing I do want to say is that we need more accountability in a meaningful, tangible way. I feel like a lot of times when people infringe on the rights of others, particularly in the workplace, nobody's held accountable. You know, somebody gets a slap on the wrist, you know, maybe 3 months of probation or whatever. But you get caught with possession with the intent to sell. You have a felony record, and you can't get a job for 30 years. So our systems are fundamentally flawed. And I think that we need stronger accountability to ensure that people have accessible workplaces, accessible home environments, accessible government facilities. And I don't know what it's going to take to get there, but something needs to change.
I agree with everyone else here. I think that generally speaking, disabled people are looked at as being less than, probably not quite as smart as. There's something wrong there. It's just so, we're just people, as you said. And if I could wave a magic wand, it would be to become engaged. We talk about inclusion, it's not just a word, you have to really live it. So to become engaged with their population that you have in your organization, or even take a chance, just take a chance and hire one of us. See how it can enrich your tapestry of the people that you have working with you. I just have to add that I'm very fortunate in that 40% of we are a nonprofit, but 40% of our staff are visually impaired. And that talk about it, having allies, we have no problem having allies, but it's wonderful to see that companies, our company, we're walking the walk, if that's the right word to use. So
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that.
So the themes I'm hearing are hire us and pay us well, be as disability-centric as possible in whatever you're doing, in positions of leadership, we're not just beneficiaries. I also wanted to give Joe a shout out because before our panel, he actually asked all of us what would make us most comfortable where we sat. And we do have some people on our panel who are deaf or hard of hearing and need to sit in particular places on the stage in order to be able to engage in the conversation.
Right.
And even just asking that conversation or asking that question is something that I actually didn't think about as well. So I wanted to say thank you.
And actually, Mariela inspired me because she asked me before me.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you to everyone. So we do this thing where, what's that? Oh, okay. So she's applauding. I would love for all of you to give us a standing ovation because it feels really good when you see the whole audience clapping for everyone. These are incredible panelists. I hope you get the chance to meet them. Thank you, guys.